When most people think about wealth in Skyrim, they picture overflowing treasure chests, piles of gold coins, and lavish mansions owned by the province's elite. But true wealth in Skyrim comes in many different forms. Some individuals possess enormous fortunes built through trade, politics, or family influence. Others control vast amounts of land, resources, or valuable artifacts that make them far richer than the average citizen could ever hope to become. The same is true for locations. While many settlements struggle to survive through farming, mining, or basic trade, a select few places have accumulated incredible amounts of wealth over the years. Whether through powerful merchant networks, strategic positions along trade routes, valuable natural resources, or centuries of political influence, these locations stand far above the rest of Skyrim when it comes to prosperity. From influential nobles and business owners to the richest cities and strongest economic centres, these are the wealthiest places and NPCs in all of Skyrim, where gold, power, and influence are never in short supply. The East Empire Company is arguably one of the wealthiest organisations in all of Skyrim, and its presence at the Port of Solitude serves as a reminder that true wealth in Tamriel often comes not from kings, jarls, or adventurers, but from commerce. While players spend much of Skyrim exploring ancient tombs, collecting treasure, and hunting dragons, the East Empire Company represents a different kind of fortune entirely. It is an institution whose wealth has been built through shipping, trade, logistics, monopolies, and connections that stretch across the entire empire. Unlike a wealthy noble who controls a single estate or a successful merchant who operates one profitable business, the East Empire Company exists on a scale that most citizens of Skyrim could barely comprehend. Its operations extend across provinces, its ships travel enormous distances, and its influence reaches far beyond the walls of Solitude. The company is so wealthy that even its local office feels like a small piece of something much larger. A vast commercial machine capable of moving goods, resources, and fortunes across Tamriel. What makes the East Empire Company particularly interesting is that much of its wealth remains implied rather than directly shown. Players never walk into a room filled with mountains of gold. They never see sprawling corporate headquarters dominating entire cities. Instead, the company communicates its wealth through scale. Everything about the organisation suggests resources far beyond what is visible. The moment players actually encounter East Empire Company facilities in Solitude, they are interacting with the local branch of an organisation that effectively serves as the Empire's commercial backbone. That alone places it among the richest entities in the entire setting. The location of the company's operations is no accident. Solitude is one of the most important ports in Skyrim, and one of the most strategically valuable cities in the province. Situated along the northern coast and connected to trade routes stretching throughout Tamriel, the city provides the perfect environment for large-scale commerce. The East Empire Company understands this. Successful businesses thrive where goods move efficiently, and few places in Skyrim move goods more efficiently than Solitude. Ships arrive from distant regions, cargo passes through warehouses, merchants conduct business, resources enter and leave the province constantly. The company benefits from all of it. Every ship docking at the port represents potential profit. Every shipment represents another transaction. Every trade route represents another source of revenue. That continuous movement creates wealth on a scale most individuals could never match. One of the key reasons the East Empire Company feels so wealthy is that its income isn't dependent on a single resource. Many rich individuals in Skyrim owe their fortunes to one industry. Mining families depend on mines, landowners depend on farms, merchants depend on specific goods. The East Empire Company depends on everything. If iron sells, they profit. If lumber sells, they profit. If food sells, they also profit. The company sits at the centre of countless economic exchanges occurring throughout the empire. Rather than controlling one commodity, it helps move them all. That diversification creates immense financial stability. Even if one market suffers, others continue generating income. The result is an organisation whose wealth accumulates continuously. The historical significance of the company further reinforces its status. The East Empire Company has existed for generations and operates with the backing of imperial authority. Throughout Elder Scrolls lore, the company has repeatedly demonstrated its ability to establish trading networks, exploit valuable resources, and expand into new territories. Organisations don't survive for that long without enormous financial power. Ships require maintenance, warehouses require staff, trade routes require protection. The infrastructure supporting the company is massive, and maintaining massive infrastructure requires massive wealth. The Solitude branch provides an excellent example of this principle, even though players only see a small portion of the company's overall operations. The facilities themselves suggest significant investment. Warehouses, docks, personnel, shipping equipment, and administrative systems all require resources. These aren't temporary structures, they're long-term commercial assets. The company has invested heavily in maintaining its position within one of Skyrim's most important trade centres. Businesses don't make investments unless they expect substantial returns. The East Empire Company clearly does. Compared to many wealthy NPCs throughout Skyrim, the company's resources feel almost limitless. A successful merchant like Balathor might accumulate a respectable fortune. Maven Blackbriar controls a powerful business empire. Certain nobles possess impressive estates. Yet all of these individuals remain relatively local. Their wealth exists within Skyrim. However, the East Empire Company's wealth exists throughout the whole empire. That distinction matters enormously. Local wealth can be impressive. Imperial wealth becomes transformative. The company operates on a level where individual fortunes start looking small by comparison. The relationship between the East Empire Company and maritime trade is particularly important. Throughout history, some of the wealthiest organisations in the real world built their fortunes through shipping and commerce. The same principle literally applies here. Ships connect markets, markets generate demand, demand ultimately generates profit. The East Empire Company positions itself at the centre of that process. Rather than producing every good itself, the company profits from facilitating exchange. This is one of the most powerful economic positions possible. Producers depend on transport, consumers depend on that, and merchants depend on it as well. The company inserts itself between all three, and every transaction creates another opportunity for revenue. The influence associated with that wealth may be even more significant than the wealth itself. Rich organisations don't merely possess money, they possess leverage. The East Empire Company can influence trade patterns, it can direct resources, it can shape local economies. Its decisions affect merchants, cities, and entire regions. That level of influence reflects extraordinary financial power. Few entities in Skyrim possess comparable reach. Even powerful Jarls often exercise authority within their own holds. Its economic footprint extends far beyond any single city. The docks of Solitude constantly reinforce this perception. Every ship represents a connection to distant markets. Every crate suggests valuable cargo. Every warehouse implies ongoing commercial activity. Players may only witness a snapshot of these operations, but the implications are enormous. The visible facilities are merely the surface layer. The true wealth exists in the networks supporting them. Trade routes stretching across oceans, partnerships spanning provinces, generations of accumulated commercial power. All of it contributes to the company's immense fortune. Compared to resource-based fortunes such as those controlled by mining families in Markarth, the East Empire Company's wealth feels much more sustainable. Mines can be exhausted, harvests can fail, local industries can decline. But trade adapts. As long as goods are moving, opportunities for profit remain. The company benefits from the economy itself rather than any single component of it. That flexibility makes its wealth remarkably resilient. The organisation also benefits from a scale in a way competitors cannot match. Large networks create efficiencies unavailable to smaller businesses. More ships, more routes, more warehouses, more personnel. Each new asset increases the value of the existing network. The result is a cycle of growth that naturally favours large organisations. The East Empire Company has been growing for generations. Its size becomes a competitive advantage, and ultimately, competitive advantages generate wealth. Another fascinating aspect of the company is how ordinary it appears on the surface. Players can often walk past East Empire facilities without immediately recognising the scale of the organisation behind them. There are no golden palaces, no extravagant monuments, no obvious displays of luxury. Instead, the wealth hides within systems. Shipping systems, distribution and commercial systems as well. The company resembles a machine designed to convert trade into profit. Machines don't need to look impressive, they only need to work. And by every indication, the East Empire Company's machine works exceptionally well. Even the political instability of Skyrim during the Civil War highlights the company's strength. Wars disrupt trade, disruptions create challenges. Yet organisations with large networks often survive such challenges better than smaller competitors. The East Empire Company has endured political upheaval before. Its wealth provides resilience, its influence provides options, its infrastructure provides continuity. Those advantages separate truly wealthy organisations from merely successful ones. That's ultimately what makes the Empire Company one of the wealthiest entities in all of Skyrim. Not because players see vast piles of gold, not because its representatives flaunt extravagant lifestyles, but because the company controls something far more valuable than treasure. It controls trade, it controls movement, it controls access to markets spanning an empire. From its operations at the Port of Solitude, it connects Skyrim to the wider world, turning ships, cargo and commerce into immense financial power. A merchant can become rich, a noble can become wealthy, a jarl can accumulate influence. But the East Empire Company operates on an entirely different scale. A scale measured not in coins, but in economies. And few fortunes in Tamriel can compete with that. At first glance, Dragon Bridge does not look like it belongs anywhere near a discussion about the wealthiest places in all of Skyrim. In fact, most players probably pass through the settlement without giving it much thought. Compared to major cities like Solitude, Whiterun or Markarth, Dragon Bridge appears almost insignificant. It consists of a handful of buildings, a tavern, a mill, a farm, and the famous bridge that gives the village its name. There are no towering castles, no sprawling marketplaces, no noble districts, and no obvious displays of luxury. On the surface, it looks like exactly what it is, a small settlement located along a major road. Yet beneath the modest appearance lies one of the most surprising economic realities in the entire game. Analysis of Skyrim's in-game data reveals that Dragon Bridge possesses a combined wealth exceeding 10,696 gold when evaluating the value of local inventories, possessions, and available resources. For a settlement of its size, that figure is remarkable. In fact, Dragon Bridge quietly emerges as one of the wealthiest small villages in Skyrim, outperforming many locations that appear far more prosperous at first glance. What makes this even more fascinating is that the village's wealth is not the result of a single rich family or an extraordinary natural resource. Instead, Dragon Bridge benefits from something arguably more valuable: location. To understand why Dragon Bridge accumulates so much wealth, it is important to look at where the village sits within Skyrim's geography. The settlement occupies one of the most strategically valuable positions in the province. The massive stone bridge spans the Karth River, serves as one of the primary routes connecting Solitude with the rest of Skyrim. Anyone travelling by land toward the capital from much of the province is likely to pass through Dragon Bridge. That constant movement creates opportunity. Trade follows roads, money follows trade, and Dragon Bridge sits directly in the path of both. Unlike isolated villages hidden deep within forests or mountain valleys, Dragon Bridge exists on a major transportation corridor. Merchants transporting goods travel through the settlement. Imperial personnel also travel through as well. Farmers, labourers, messengers, nobles, and countless other travellers eventually find themselves crossing the bridge. Every traveller represents economic activity. Food must be purchased, supplies must be replaced, rooms must be rented, services must be provided. Over time, those small transactions accumulate into substantial wealth. The bridge itself acts almost like an economic engine. Throughout history, settlements positioned near important crossings often become prosperous because movement naturally concentrates around them. Dragon Bridge follows the same principle. The village doesn't need to attract people artificially. The road does the work, the bridge and the geography also does it as well. As long as travellers continue moving between Solitude and the rest of Skyrim, Dragon Bridge remains relevant. And relevance ultimately generates income. The connection to Solitude is particularly important. Solitude is not merely another city, it serves as the capital of Harfinger, one of Skyrim's largest trade hubs, a major port, and the centre of imperial authority within the province. Proximity to wealth often creates wealth in its own sense. Dragon Bridge benefits enormously from this relationship. Goods entering and leaving Solitude pass nearby. Officials moving to and from the capital also pass. Commercial traffic associated with the city also passes as well. The village effectively exists in the economic shadow of one of Skyrim's most important urban centres. That alone provides significant advantages. Many small settlements struggle because they exist far from major markets. Dragon Bridge enjoys the opposite situation. One of the richest markets in Skyrim sits just down the road. The Places Oculatus outpost further elevates the settlement's economic importance. This is perhaps one of the most overlooked reasons Dragon Bridge appears so wealthy in game data. The presence of the outpost introduces a level of political and financial significance that most villagers never experience. The Places Oculatus are not ordinary guards. They are the Emperor's protectors, elite agents connected directly to Imperial authority. Organisations of that nature require resources. They require supplies, infrastructure, and support networks. The existence of the outpost brings wealth into the area almost by default. Imperial institutions tend to attract funding. Funding attracts workers, workers attract services, services ultimately attract commerce. The entire local economy benefits. Even if players never directly witness these financial relationships, the implications are clear. The village enjoys access to economic opportunities unavailable to most rural communities. The NPCs themselves also play a massive part into why Dragon Bridge feels so wealthy. While Dragon Bridge lacks the population density of larger settlements, many of its residents possess more resources than players might initially expect. Their inventories, possessions, homes, and economic activities collectively contribute to the village's impressive wealth total. This is one of the reasons Dragon Bridge stands out so dramatically when examined through game statistics. The settlement doesn't necessarily look wealthy, but the numbers tell a different story. Hidden beneath its modest appearance is a surprisingly affluent community. That contrast makes Dragon Bridge particularly fascinating. Many wealthy locations advertise their prosperity openly. Dragon Bridge doesn't. The village remains understated. Its wealth exists quietly. The local economy also benefits from diversity. Some villages depend almost entirely on a single industry. Mining communities rely on mines, farming villages rely on agriculture. Dragon Bridge enjoys multiple economic inputs. Trade passes through the settlement. Travellers spend money there. Local agriculture contributes additional resources. The nearby Imperial presence provides stability and demand. This diversification creates resilience. If one source of income weakens, others continue functioning. And as a result, wealth accumulates steadily rather than fluctuating dramatically. Compared to more remote settlements such as Kynes Grove or Shaw's Stone, Dragon Bridge feels unusually connected. Isolation often limits economic growth. Connection encourages it. Dragon Bridge remains connected to everything: roads, trade routes, political institutions, military infrastructure, major cities. These connections generate opportunities that smaller settlements simply cannot replicate. The village effectively leverages its position within Skyrim's broader economy. Its success stems not from scale, but from access. The famous bridge itself contributes symbolically as well as practically. The infrastructure represents investment. Large infrastructure projects attract activity. The bridge is one of the most recognizable landmarks in Skyrim, precisely because of its importance. People notice it, people use it, people depend on it. And wherever people gather, economic activity follows. The settlement benefits from being associated with one of the province's most significant transportation assets. The inn located within Dragon Bridge plays a surprisingly important role too. Travellers crossing long distances need places to rest. The Four Shields Tavern provides exactly that. As traffic flows through the village, the inn captures a portion of that activity. Food, lodging, and information becomes commodities. Every guest represents revenue. Every visitor contributes to the local economy, and over time, the cumulative effect becomes substantial. This pattern repeats throughout the settlement. Small businesses benefit from large traffic volumes. The village succeeds through consistency rather than spectacle. Another factor worth considering is security. Wealth often gravitates towards stability. Travellers prefer safe routes, merchants prefer secure locations. Dragon Bridge benefits from its proximity to imperial authority and the relative security associated with major roads. Safer environments encourage commerce. Commerce generates wealth, and the village's position therefore creates a positive cycle. Security ultimately attracts travellers, travellers support the businesses, businesses generate income, and income reinforces prosperity. What makes Dragon Bridge especially interesting compared to larger wealthy cities is efficiency. Cities like Solitude possess enormous economies, but also enormous populations and expenses. Dragon Bridge operates on a small scale. The wealth concentrated there becomes more noticeable because fewer people share it. The settlement punches far above its weight economically. Its size suggests modest prosperity. Its actual numbers suggest something far greater. That's ultimately what makes Dragon Bridge one of the most surprising entries among Skyrim's wealthiest places. Not because it contains grand palaces, not because it houses powerful nobles, not because it dominates provincial politics. Instead, the village succeeds through geography, infrastructure, trade, and proximity to power. Its location along one of Skyrim's most important routes transforms a small settlement into an economic success story. Travellers bring money, officials bring money, commerce brings money. And ultimately, the bridge itself brings it as well. And over time, all of those advantages combine to create a village whose wealth far exceeds what its humble appearance would ever suggest. A tiny settlement standing in the shadow of Solitude, a handful of buildings beside a famous bridge, and quietly, almost invisibly, one of the richest small communities in the entire province. Imagine arriving in Skyrim with no knowledge of its politics, trade networks, or history. You travel across the tundra of Whiterun, through the forests of Falkreath, past the rugged cliffs of the Reach, and eventually reach the massive stone arch rising above the Sea of Ghosts. Sitting atop that natural monument is Solitude, a city that immediately feels different from almost every other settlement in the province. Before you even enter its gates, the signs of wealth are everywhere. The city occupies one of the most valuable locations in Skyrim. It possesses some of the most impressive architecture in the game. It serves as the capital of Harfinger and the centre of imperial power in the region. Ships arrive at its docks carrying goods from distant lands. Nobles occupy large homes. Merchants operate successful businesses. Government officials oversee provincial affairs. Everything about Solitude communicates prosperity. Unlike many settlements that struggle to survive in Skyrim's harsh environment, Solitude feels like a city that has accumulated wealth for generations, turning geography, politics, trade, and influence into one of the largest concentrations of riches in the entire province. The easiest way to understand solitude's wealth is to start with its location. Cities throughout history often become rich because they controlled something valuable. Some controlled rivers, some controlled trade routes, some controlled natural resources. Solitude controls access. Its position along the northern coast gives it direct access to maritime trade, something many settlements in Skyrim lack. The city connects the province to wider markets throughout Tamriel, allowing goods to move in and out efficiently. This alone would make Solitude prosperous. The harbour is one of the most important economic assets in Skyrim. Ships arriving from distant provinces bringing resources, luxury goods, food, raw material, and countless other products. Merchants distribute those goods throughout the province. Every shipment represents profit. Every cargo hold represents value. Every vessel entering the harbour contributes to the local economy. The docks may not appear glamorous compared to the Blue Palace or the castle, but they are arguably the foundation upon which much of Solitude's wealth is built. Without trade, even powerful cities struggle. Solitude thrives because trade never truly stops. Then there is the simple reality of being a capital city. Capitals attract money. Government officials require housing. Administrative institutions require funding. Military forces require supplies. And diplomatic visitors require accommodations. Every layer of government activity creates economic demand. Solitude benefits from it all. The city serves as the political heart of imperial influence in Skyrim. Decisions affecting entire holds pass through Solitude. Important individuals travel there regularly. Resources flow towards centres of power because power itself creates opportunity. People go where decisions are made, and people with influence often bring wealth with them. This relationship between power and money becomes visible throughout the city. The Blue Palace stands as one of the most impressive residences in Skyrim. Noble families maintain significant estates. Government buildings occupy valuable real estate. None of these things appear in poor cities. They only appear in wealthy ones. The architecture itself tells that story. Compared to many settlements, Solitude looks expensive. Large stone buildings dominate the cityscape. Roads are maintained. Public spaces feel developed rather than improvised. The city gives the impression of long-term investment. And ultimately, investment requires resources, and resources require wealth. Every wall, tower, and district reflects generations of accumulated prosperity. The contrast with other cities becomes striking when viewed through its lens. Winterhold is defined by decline. Morthal remains modest and rural. Dawnstar struggles with isolation. Solitude projects confidence. It looks successful, and successful places tend to attract even more success. The local merchant class plays an enormous role in maintaining this prosperity. Wealthy cities need thriving businesses, and Solitude contains some of the strongest commercial activity in Skyrim. Shops cater not only to local residents, but to travellers, sailors, soldiers, nobles, and visiting officials as well. The customer base is enormous. More customers mean more transactions. More transactions mean more profit. The city benefits from economic diversity as well. Some settlements rely heavily on a single industry. Solitude does not. Trade generates income. Government generates income. Military activity generates income. There are many ways the city generates income, and the city ultimately possesses multiple economic engines operating simultaneously. That diversification makes wealth more stable. If one sector weakens, others continue producing revenue. The Bard's College may seem insignificant compared to ports and trade routes, but it contributes to Solitude's status in subtle ways. Prestigious institutions attract educated individuals, visitors, and cultural activity. Cultural centres often become economic centres. People travel to them, spend money there, build reputations. The college reinforces Solitude's identity as more than just a military or political city. It becomes a destination. Destinations attract wealth. Another major factor is security. Wealth rarely accumulates in unstable environments. Merchants prefer safe trade routes, investors prefer secure markets, travellers prefer protected cities. Solitude offers all three. The city's defences are among the strongest in Skyrim. Its elevated position provides natural protection. Imperial forces maintain order. The result is a city where commerce can flourish without constant disruption. This security advantage cannot be overstated. A merchant transporting valuable goods wants confidence that those goods will arrive safely. Solitude provides that confidence, and as a result, economic activity naturally gravitates towards the city. As I've talked before, the presence of the East Empire Company further highlights Solitude's financial importance. Few organisations in Tamriel possess comparable economic influence. Their operations at the port demonstrate just how valuable the city has become within larger imperial trade networks. Major corporations do not establish significant operations in economically insufficient locations. They go where money moves, and money moves through Solitude constantly. The city's residents also reflect its wealth. Many NPCs living in Solitude enjoy lifestyles unavailable elsewhere in Skyrim. Large homes, expensive furnishings, fine clothing, and connections to influential institutions all point toward a relatively affluent population. Not everyone in Solitude is rich, of course, but the concentration of wealth is noticeably higher than in many other settlements. The city contains nobles, successful merchants, military officers, government officials. Each group contributes additional purchasing power to the local economy. The cumulative effect becomes substantial. Even the city's geography helps with this financial success. Solitude occupies a commanding position overlooking the sea and surrounding region. Control of valuable terrain often translates into economic advantages. Trade routes become easier to monitor, ports become easier to defend, infrastructure becomes easier to maintain. The city benefits from all of these factors simultaneously. Perhaps the most telling sign of Solitude's wealth is that prosperity feels almost normal here. In many parts of Skyrim, wealth stands out because it is unusual. In Solitude, prosperity feels expected. The city functions as though success is simply part of daily life. Businesses operate confidently. Institutions function effectively. Construction appears durable and expensive. The wealth becomes part of the atmosphere. It's woven into the city's identity. Players don't need to see piles of gold to recognize that Solitude is rich. Everything about the city communicates it. The people, the buildings, the harbour, the government, the military, the trade networks, and the culture. All of these elements work together to create one of the most prosperous locations in the province. That's ultimately what separates Solitude from many other wealthy places in Skyrim. Its wealth doesn't come from a single mine, a single family, or a single business. It comes from systems, trade systems, political systems, military ones, economic ones as well. Each one reinforces the other. Each one generates additional opportunities. And together they create a city whose prosperity extends far beyond what players can directly observe. A city built atop of one of the most remarkable natural landmarks in Skyrim. A city connected to the wider world through commerce and influence. A city where power and money flow together so naturally that it becomes difficult to separate one from the other. And without question, one of the wealthiest places in all of Skyrim.
At first glance, Whiterun doesn't look like the richest city in Skyrim. Unlike Solitude, it has no enormous harbour connecting it to the rest of Tamriel. Unlike Markarth, it isn't built upon vast mineral wealth. Unlike Riften, it doesn't control a criminal empire operating beneath its streets. Instead, Whiterun appears remarkably ordinary. Rolling plains surround the city, farms stretch into the distance, and merchants quietly go about their business beneath the shadow of Dragon's Reach. Yet that ordinary appearance is exactly what makes Whiterun one of the wealthiest places in the province. Its fortune has not been built upon one extraordinary industry or a single powerful family. It has been built upon geography. More specifically, it has been built upon arguably the most valuable piece of geography in all of Skyrim, sitting almost directly in the centre of the province. Whiterun occupies the crossroads of nearly every major trade route. Whether goods are travelling from Solitude to Riften, Markarth to Windhelm, Falkreath to Dawnstar, or anywhere in between, there is a very good chance they will eventually pass through Whiterun. Over decades and centuries, that constant movement has transformed what could have been a simple farming settlement into the commercial heart of Skyrim. The city's central location is its greatest asset. Unlike many other hold capitals that exist on the edges of the province, Whiterun is surrounded by opportunity in every direction. Roads radiate outward from the city like spokes on a wheel, connecting it to nearly every major settlement. Merchants transporting goods naturally gravitate towards the shortest and safest routes. Those routes almost always lead through Whiterun. Trade rarely chooses the longest journey. It chooses the most efficient one, and efficiency ultimately generates profit. Every wagon arriving at Whiterun's gates represents goods changing hands. Every caravan brings merchants. Every merchant brings money. Over time, those countless individual transactions accumulate into enormous wealth. Whiterun doesn't need to produce every valuable resource itself. It simply needs to sit where everyone else passes. And that's exactly what it does. The surrounding plains play a surprisingly important role in this prosperity. Much of Skyrim is defined by difficult terrain. Mountains separate holds, forests slow travel, snow-covered passes become dangerous during harsh weather. Whiterun avoids most of those problems. The tundra surrounding the city provides wide, open landscapes that are comparatively easy to cross. Caravans can move efficiently. Farmers can cultivate large areas of land. Livestock can graze freely. The environment encourages economic activity. Unlike mountain cities that rely on narrow roads or isolated coastal settlements dependent on shipping, Whiterun benefits from accessibility. People can reach it, and because people can reach it, business thrives. Agriculture forms another pillar of the city's wealth. While trade often receives most of the attention, the fertile plains surrounding Whiterun support some of the largest farming operations in Skyrim. Farms such as Pelagia, Battleborn, Chillferro, and others contribute significant food production to the local economy. Food is one of the most valuable commodities in any society. Cities cannot survive without it. Whiterun doesn't simply feed itself. It produces surpluses, and those surpluses can be sold, exported, traded. Agriculture creates that stability, and trade builds upon that stability as well. And together they ultimately create a lasting prosperity. The city's marketplace perfectly demonstrates how geography translates into wealth. Unlike marketplaces in more isolated settlements, Whiterun's market serves people arriving from virtually every direction. Merchants sell to locations, they sell to travellers, they sell to adventurers and soldiers. The diversity of customers strengthens the economy enormously. If one group spends less, another often compensates. The market remains active because Whiterun constantly attracts new visitors. It rarely depends on a single source of income. That economic diversity is one of the city's greatest strengths. The local merchant community reflects this prosperity beautifully. Businesses like Balathor's General Goods, Arcadia's Cauldron, War Maidens, and numerous market stalls all coexist within a relatively compact commercial district. Competition generally occurs where customers are plentiful, and Whiterun clearly has enough demand to support multiple successful businesses operating side by side. That alone says a great deal about the city's financial health. Healthy economies attract entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs create additional commerce, and commerce attracts more visitors. The cycle reinforces itself continuously. The city's political stability also contributes as well. Jarl Bolgraf governs one of the most strategically important holds in Skyrim. Yet Whiterun largely avoids the extremes affecting many other cities. While the civil war eventually reaches the city, Whiterun spends much of the game maintaining a careful balance between competing factions. Stability encourages investment. Merchants prefer predictable environments. Trade flourishes where roads remain open. The city's leadership understands this. Whiterun's neutrality, at least initially, helps preserve its economic importance. People continue doing business there because they trust the city to remain functional. And trust has economic value, perhaps more than any other resource. Dragon Reach itself symbolises another dimension of Whiterun's wealth. While it primarily serves as the Jarl's palace, its construction demonstrates the city's historical prosperity. Massive halls, impressive architecture, and commanding views all require significant resources to build and maintain. Poor cities rarely construct monuments of that scale. Wealthy ones do. Dragon Reach stands not only as a political centre, but also as evidence of generations of accumulated prosperity. The city's relationship with the Khajiit caravans further reinforces its role as Skyrim's commercial crossroads. Although the caravans remain outside the walls, their repeated presence near Whiterun highlights the city's importance within broader trade networks. Professional merchants choose profitable routes. The Khajiit constantly return because Whiterun provides customers. Customers generate revenue, revenue keeps caravans moving. Even traders operating outside traditional economic systems recognizes the city's value. Compared to Solitude, the source of Whiterun's wealth feels fundamentally different. Solitude prospers because it controls international trade through maritime connections and imperial politics. Whiterun prospers because it connects Skyrim to itself. It is the province's internal marketplace. Its wealth comes from circulation rather than importation. Every hold contributes to Whiterun's economy in some way. Every hold depends upon its return. That mutual relationship creates resilience. Even if external trade slows, internal commerce continues. The city's blacksmithing industry benefits enormously from this position. War Maidens serves travellers preparing for long journeys, adventurers upgrading equipment, and local residents maintaining tools. Blacksmiths thrive where people travel. Travel wears down equipment, equipment requires repairs, and repairs generates business. Again, Whiterun's location turns movement into profit. The Bennett Mare plays a similar role. Inns situated along major routes often become economic centres in their own rights. Travellers need food, rest, information, accommodation. The Bennett Mare supplies all four. Every guest represents another contribution to Whiterun's economy. Its popularity reflects the city's broader commercial success. The city's openness also deserves attention. Unlike heavily fortified mountain settlements with little approaches, Whiterun welcomes movement. The roads leading towards the city remain visible across the plains. Visitors can see the city from great distances. The city almost advertises itself. This openness creates psychological accessibility. People naturally move towards places that feel easy to reach. Whiterun benefits from that instinct constantly. Another important factor is that Whiterun's economy doesn't rely on luxury. It relies on necessity. People don't visit solely for entertainment. They visit because they need supplies, need transportation, trade, food, equipment, and information. Necessities create consistent demand. Consistent demand creates reliable income, and reliable income builds wealth over generations. The Civil War itself demonstrates just how valuable Whiterun has become. Both the Empire and the Stormcloaks understand the city's strategic importance. Neither side can afford to ignore it. Control of Whiterun means controlling the heart of Skyrim's transportation network. Military often follows economic geography. Whoever controls trade routes gains enormous advantages. The city's role within the conflict highlights just how economically significant it has become. Every road seems to point towards Whiterun. Every journey creates another opportunity for trade, and every transaction adds another layer to an economy that has been growing for generations. A city surrounded by open plains, a marketplace standing at the crossroads of an entire province, and a place whose greatest source has never been buried beneath the ground or carried across the sea, but the endless flow of people and commerce passing through its gates every single day. In Skyrim, riches are not always counted in coins. Treasure piles in dragon crypts and dragon hoards may seem impressive, but true wealth lies elsewhere. It rests in influence, in ownership, in the ability to manipulate politics and bend others to your will. For most NPCs in Skyrim, wealth is fleeting, a pouch of septims, a trade stall in a marketplace, a modest farm eking out survival. But a few individuals do rise above the ordinary, gathering not just gold, but the kind of power that ensures more gold will always flow their way. These are the richest NPCs in Skyrim. Some are nobles, some are criminals, some are politicians, but all of them have built empires that place them beyond the reach of ordinary mortals. Their fortunes are not simply numbers, they are systems, structures, and legacies. In the Reach, power is synonymous with gold, and no family exemplifies that more than the Silverbloods. At the heart of their dynasty is Thonar Silverblood, a man whose wealth comes not only from his lineage, but from his ruthlessness in defending it. Thonar controls the Sidna mine, one of the richest silver mines in Skyrim, and though it holds the city of Markarth in a stranglehold, to the common folk, Sidna mine is a prison, a place where criminals are sent to toil away until they die. But for Thonar, it is a gold mine in many ways than one. Every bar of silver smelted flows into his coffers. Every prisoner sentenced means more free labour for his empire. Unlike other nobles, Thonar is not afraid to get his hands dirty. He is deeply involved with the Forsworn conspiracy, using the chaos of rebellion to further tighten his grip on Markarth. His wealth is not only material, but political as well, ensuring that Jarls, guards, and mercenaries bend to his will. Thonar is not beloved, far from it. He is actually feared and despised, but that matters little. For him, silver is power, and in Markarth, the Silverbloods will always come out on top. Jarls across Skyrim wield enormous resources, but few can match the wealth and prosperity of Jarl Bolgraf of Whiterun. Whiterun is Skyrim's beating heart, positioned at the crossroads of nearly every major trade route. Goods from the north, south, east, and west all pass through its gates. Merchants pay taxes, caravans bring coin, and travellers spend freely in inns and markets. As Jarl, Bolgraf oversees this economy artery, collecting revenues and distributing wealth as he sees fit. Unlike the decadence of Maven Blackbriar or the cruelty of Thonar Silverblood, Bolgraf's wealth carries an air of legitimacy. He invests in the city's infrastructure, in Dragon's Reach, and in the defences of his people. His riches fund not just luxury, but stability. And yet, beneath his steady demeanour, Bolgraf knows his wealth is precarious. The Civil War threatens Whiterun's neutrality, and the arrival of dragons places his city at the centre of chaos. Still, no one can deny that Bolgraf commands not only one of Skyrim's most powerful armies, but also one of its richest coffers. His fortune is tied not to crime or corruption, but to geography and governance. In Skyrim's dangerous world, that makes him unique among the wealthy elite. While technically a foreigner, General Tullius wields wealth and resources in Skyrim that few locals can rival. His position as commander of the Imperial Legion in Skyrim grants him access to the coffers of the Empire itself. Every fort, every soldier's wage, every piece of steel armour or sharpened blade, all are funded through his influence. Tullius himself may not flaunt his wealth. He dresses like a soldier, speaks bluntly, and cares little for luxury. But make no mistake, his reach is vast. With the Empire's treasury behind him, Tullius can raise armies, fund campaigns, and dictate the flow of supplies across Skyrim. His wealth is systematic rather than personal. It lies in the ability to redirect caravans, requisition goods, to command loyalty through pay. Unlike Maven, who thrives on corruption, or Thonar, who profits from mines, Tullius's riches come from being the representative of an empire that spans continents. While Stormcloak sympathizers may despise him, no one can deny the sheer power behind his purse. His wealth is a reminder that Skyrim's conflicts are not just local, they are tied to the vast machinery of the Imperial Heartland. At first glance, Brynjolf doesn't seem as wealthy as the others on this list. He is a thief, a schemer, and a man who spends his time hawking fake potions in the market stalls of Riften. But appearances are deceptive. As the de facto recruiter of the Thieves Guild, Brynjolf controls access to one of the most lucrative underground organisations in Skyrim. Every heist, every smuggling operation, every pocket picked in the Rift eventually funnels profit back through him and associates. While Mercer Frey may have sat in the Guildmaster's chair for a time, Brynjolf was always the heart of its operations, the man who kept the guild alive through charm, charisma, and calculated risk. When the Dragonborn restores the Thieves Guild to its former glory, Brynjolf emerges as one of its most powerful figures, managing wealth that rivals that of Jarl's. His riches aren't stacked in vaults like Thonar's silver, nor displayed in lavish estates. Instead, they are fluid, constantly moving, feeding a network of thieves, fencers, and smugglers. Brynjolf's fortune lies in his adaptability. In a land of rigid hierarchies and dynasties, he thrives on flexibilities. His riches aren't bound by borders or titles. They are as slippery and elusive as the man himself. At the top of this list, unsurprisingly, sits Maven Blackbriar. To call her the richest NPC in Skyrim is almost an understatement. She is not merely wealthy, she is untouchable. Maven controls Blackbriar Meadery, one of Skyrim's most successful businesses, ensuring that every mug of mead sold carries her name and adds to her fortune. But mead is only the beginning. She controls smuggling, trade routes, mercenary companies, and the Thieves Guild itself. While she masquerades as a benefactor, the reality is that she is their ruler in all but name. What makes Maven unique is that her wealth is inseparable from her influence. She cannot be killed, cannot be overthrown, and cannot be intimidated. Jarls bow to her, guards obey her, and criminals revere her. Even the Dragonborn, a figure of immense power, becomes little more than her tool. Her children extend her dynasty as well, ensuring that the Blackbriar name will dominate long after Maven herself is gone. In Riften, her word is law. In Skyrim, her influence spreads like roots through stone. Maven Blackbriar is more than the richest NPC in Skyrim. She is Skyrim's unseen queen, a monarch without a throne, whose wealth is measured not in septims, but in inevitability. To understand why these NPCs are the richest, one must also consider how wealth functions in Skyrim. Jarls live in longhouses, surrounded by advisors and guards. Their riches fund armies and architecture. Nobles like Thonar build dynasties around mines, turning natural resources into political clout. Military leaders like Tullius wield the wealth of entire empires. But characters like Maven and Brynjolf reveal another truth. Wealth in Skyrim is often criminal. Illicit trade, smuggling, and intimidation yield profits just as surely as taxes or tithes. The lifestyle of Skyrim's richest is therefore not one of open extravagance, but of subtle dominance. While the common villager worries about wolves or Draga, the wealthy few plot in meaderies, throne rooms, and war councils. Their wealth is not simply about coin, it is about bending Skyrim's fate to their desires. In the end, wealth in Skyrim is not equal. Some inherit it, others steal it, and others command it through military might. But the richest NPCs all share one thing in common: permanence. Their wealth cannot be stripped away by chance encounters, random dragon attacks, or the whims of fate. Whether through dynasties, armies, or webs of corruption, these five figures, Thonar Silverblood, Jarl Bolgraf, General Tullius, Brynjolf, and Maven Blackbriar, stand above the rest. Their wealth is not only vast, but enduring. And among them, Maven Blackbriar towers highest. She doesn't just own riches, she owns Skyrim's silence, its shadows, and its very systems of power. That is why these five deserve their titles as the richest NPCs
in all of Skyrim. Imagine waking up in the cold, harsh lands of Skyrim, with nothing but the rags on your back and the faint hope of making a name for yourself. You see a blacksmith hammering away, traders shouting at the market, and guards patrolling with that signature arrow to the knee limp. Skyrim seems full of opportunity, until you actually try to make a living. The Elder Scrolls Skyrim is a vast world with many locations and characters to indulge in. But one question remains: could you really survive financially? Are the wages fair, or are you just one dragon attack away from bankruptcy? Let's break down Skyrim's economy, job market, and cost of living to determine whether an honest worker can actually make ends meet, or if the only viable career path is thievery and adventuring. Before discussing wages, it's important to understand the state of Skyrim's economy. Skyrim is in the middle of a civil war. Trade routes are disrupted and banditry is rampant. The province's economy is largely feudal, with wealth concentrated in the hands of the Jarls, nobility, and powerful merchants like Maven Blackbriar. Meanwhile, the average citizen scrapes by with low wages and little job security. Unlike real-world economies, Skyrim doesn't have a fluctuating currency system. Prices are static, meaning inflation and deflation aren't concerns. But that doesn't mean everyone is thriving. Let's take a look at the most common jobs in Skyrim and how much they actually pay. Blacksmiths are some of the most visible workers in Skyrim. They craft weapons, armor, and tools necessary for survival. But is this a lucrative career? Well, the average blacksmith sells iron daggers for 10 septims. Oh, and septims are basically Skyrim's form of currency. Iron swords made by blacksmiths also go for 25 septims. They buy iron ingots for 7 septims and leather strips for 3 septims, meaning their profit margins are painfully small. Custom orders from adventurers or Jarls might bring in more money, but given the small-scale operations of most blacksmiths, it's unlikely they're ranking in massive profits. So their estimated daily earnings are around 100 to 200 septims, depending on sales and demand. Skyrim's farms are small, family-run operations. Unlike modern farms, they don't have large-scale machinery, meaning all work is manual. You can work on a farm for 5 septims per day. Farmers also sell produce, potatoes, etc. for 1 septim each, cabbage for 3, and goat's cheese for 5. Since an average farm produces limited crops, farmers barely make enough to live comfortably. So for a farmer, their estimated daily earnings are around 5 to 30 septims, depending on extra sales. Mines in Skyrim produce iron or even other rare ores like ebony and malachite. These resources are essential for blacksmiths who turn them into weapons and armor, making mining a fundamental part of Skyrim's economy. However, despite its importance, mining remains a risky and often underappreciated profession. Miners can work for around 10 septims per ore mined, though the payout varies depending on the type of ore. Common ores like iron and corundum provide a steady, albeit modest income. On the other hand, rare ores such as ebony and malachite can fetch significantly higher prices, but access to these materials is tightly controlled. The Silverblood family, for instance, has a monopoly over the lucrative silver mines in Markarth, ensuring that most of the profit flows into their coffers rather than the hands of the individual miners. Beyond economic instability, the dangers of mining in Skyrim are numerous. Cave-ins are a constant threat, especially in older or poorly maintained mines. However, the more immediate dangers come from the various hostile creatures that often lurk in these underground tunnels. Infested mines, frostbite spiders, and even Falmer strongholds make mining an incredibly dangerous profession. Additionally, some unlucky workers may find themselves forced into servitude. Seedna Mine, for example, is essentially a death sentence for prisoners, where they labour endlessly under the watchful eyes of the Silverbloods and Markarth guards. When compared to other common jobs in Skyrim, mining is one of the riskiest. Farmers, for example, earn a more stable income without worrying about being attacked by undead.
Blacksmiths who rely on mined materials make far more money while working in relatively safe conditions. Even mercenaries who risk their lives in combat often have higher earning potential than miners due to bounties and loot. So, knowing all this, the estimated daily earning for a miner is around 50 to 150 septims, but this can vary greatly. And for the verdict, it's dangerous, inconsistent, but potentially profitable for those who are willing to take the risk. However, given the alternatives, mining is one of the more perilous and unpaid jobs in Skyrim. Running a store sounds like a great way to avoid danger, but is it profitable? Most general stores sell items ranging from 5 septims to 500 plus septims. The markup on resold goods is genuinely high, but stores don't get that many customers. Since there's no large supply chain, everything is sourced locally or from adventurers, making inventory unpredictable. Shopkeepers also have to worry about theft, whether from common thieves or even the Dragonborn waltzing in and taking everything in sight. Despite these challenges, store owners at least enjoy a stable and relatively safe work environment, compared to miners or mercenaries. However, some shopkeepers like Bellathor in Whiterun seem to be in constant financial struggle, suggesting that success depends largely on location and available goods. Another issue is the sheer randomness of sales. Unlike real-world economies where shops rely on consistent foot traffic, a Skyrim shopkeeper might go days without a single sale. Then, out of nowhere, a heavily armed adventurer might walk in and buy out half the inventory. This feast or famine cycle makes long-term financial planning very difficult for shopkeepers. Additionally, competition can be fierce. General stores in large cities like Solitude and Riften have an advantage over smaller town shops, as they benefit from more travellers and a wealthier clientele. In contrast, a shopkeeper in a remote village like Riverwood may struggle to sell anything beyond basic supplies. Merchants who specialise in rare goods, like Enther in the College of Winterhold, tend to have more stable income because they cater to specific niche markets. Even with these drawbacks, shopkeeping remains one of the safest professions in Skyrim. Unlike mercenaries, which I'll touch on later, or miners, shopkeepers don't have to risk life and limb just to earn their pay. While they might get the occasional shakedown from bandits or a local gang like the Blackbriars, most shopkeepers can simply lock their doors at night and be relatively safe. For their estimated daily earnings, it's around 150 to 300 septims. Therefore, the verdict for shopkeeping in Skyrim is that it's more stable than other jobs, but it is still a hustle. Profitability depends on location, inventory, and a bit of luck. For those who value safety over high earnings, shopkeeping is a reasonable choice. Just don't expect to become the next Jarl. For those willing to swing a sword for money, mercenary work is an option. Bounty jobs pay 100 to 500 septims depending on the target. Clearing out a bandit camp may net 1,000 plus septims in loot, but you are also at a risk of dying to a frost troll. While the payout can be lucrative, success largely depends on skill, equipment, and luck. A well-equipped mercenary with enchanted gear and strong combat abilities can make a small fortune, while an inexperienced one might not survive their first contract. Combat jobs also have hidden costs, such as repairs to armor, restocking potions, and occasionally paying for healing services can quickly eat into profits. Unlike shopkeepers or miners, mercenaries have the benefit of freedom. They aren't tied to a single location and can take jobs as they please. However, this also means income is highly inconsistent. One day might bring a massive payday from looting a dungeon, while another could see a mercenary returning empty-handed or not returning at all. There's also the ethical dilemma. Some mercenaries are hired for honourable tasks like slaying bandits or protecting villages, while others take on a more dubious work, such as assassinations or working for criminal organisations like the Blackbriars or the Thieves' Guild. Reputation can make or break a mercenary's career, as working for the wrong people might lead to trouble with the law or being blacklisted by honest employers. But going beyond traditional bounties, some mercenaries work as personal bodyguards, particularly for nobles or merchants travelling between cities. These jobs pay well, but carry their own risks, as wealthy employers often attract dangerous enemies. Others seek out ancient ruins and tombs in search of treasure, but such ventures are among the deadliest undertakings in Skyrim. Additionally, mercenary work isn't for everyone. The physical demands are extreme, requiring skill in combat and the ability to navigate Skyrim's harsh wilderness. Many mercenaries don't live long enough to enjoy their earnings, and even those who do often suffer lasting injuries. This can make future work difficult. Without a steady employer, a mercenary's income fluctuates, making long-term security very uncertain. The estimated daily earnings for a mercenary varies wildly, basically high potential. And for the verdict, being a mercenary comes with high risk but high reward. It's great if you don't mind dying. A skilled mercenary can make a fortune, but the job is brutal and unforgiving. Those who survive and build a reputation can live well, but the road to riches is paved with danger and bloodshed. Given how rough legal jobs are, it's no surprise many turn to crime. Joining the Thieves Guild can net 1,000 plus septims per job. Dark Brotherhood contracts range from 500 to several thousand septims. Banditry, a life of looting, pays well, assuming you don't get caught. There's also scamming and extortion and treasure hunting. In short, crime pays in Skyrim. A Thieves Guild member can make more in one heist than a farmer earns in a month. And with so much lawlessness, even the guards don't seem particularly motivated to crack down on it. Unless, of course, you get caught red-handed. After analysing Skyrim's economy, wages, and cost of living, one thing is clear. Surviving in Skyrim is tough. Honest labour barely covers basic expenses, and most workers live paycheck to paycheck, with little hope of upward mobility. Ultimately, while it's technically possible to make an honest living in Skyrim, it's a hard and unforgiving existence. If you want to thrive, you may have to embrace the shadows, or pick up a sword and carve out your own fortune.
What ultimately makes a place or person wealthy in Skyrim isn't simply the amount of gold they possess. Wealth is influence, it's stability, it's the ability to control resources, shape trade, and attract opportunity long before a single coin changes hands. Some fortunes are built on powerful merchant empires, others on generations of political influence, while entire cities owe their prosperity to nothing more than where they were built. That's why the richest places in Skyrim often don't look the richest at first glance. A quiet village sitting on a major trade route can quietly accumulate enormous value. A bustling port can become the gateway to an entire empire's economy, and a city built at the crossroads of every major road can grow into the commercial heart of the province simply because everyone eventually passes through it. In the end, Skyrim's greatest fortunes and richest NPCs aren't hidden away inside ancient Nordic tombs or locked behind Dwemer vaults. They are built every single day through trade, geography, and influence. And while adventurers spend their time searching for treasure, the wealthiest people and places in Skyrim have already discovered something far more valuable. They don't need to chase gold, because gold comes to them.